Hello children, we've got another chapter of our book about Mr. Meddle, and this time the chapter is Mr. Meddle makes another mistake. You would think he would have learned about things yesterday, wouldn't you? So it's going to be very interesting to see what he gets up to today. Alright, now once Mr. Meddle felt rather gloomy, and he went about with such a long face that his friends teased him about it. "Whatever is the matter?" they asked. "Have you lost a shilling and found sixpence?" "Oh, don't be silly," said Mr. Meddle. "I am sad because I am bored." "Look here, Meddle," said Gobo at once. "You haven't enough to do. That's what's the matter with you. You get a job of some kind or go round helping people. That's the best cure for being bored or sad." "Is it really?" said Mr. Meddle. "Well, I'll do that then. I see that Mr. Biscuit, the grocer, wants another errand boy. Perhaps I could take that job." So off he went to Mr. Biscuit, and the grocer said yes, he could be an errand boy. And here is his little sign. See the grocer's sign, and he wants an errand boy. And there is Mr. Meddle. Can you see him? And that's the grocer. And there's another person who getting some potatoes out of a sack. Okay? All right. "What do I have to do?" asked Meddle, quite excited. "Nothing much, except to take parcels around," said Mr. Biscuit. "This is Sam Quickly, my other errand boy. Now he's a good lad. You can help him today for a start." Well, as you know, Meddle was a muddler, and as Sam Quickly was just like his name, the two didn't get on very well together. Sam did everything smartly and quickly, but old Meddle fell over sacks, trod on spilt potatoes instead of picking them up, and covered himself with flour almost at once. "Good gracious, you look like a miller," said Sam with a giggle. "Here, take this parcel to Mrs. Brown's, and for goodness sake dust yourself off before you go." Meddle dusted himself so hard that the flour flew all over the place, and Sam sneezed. Then Meddle took the parcel and went off to Mrs. Brown's. But it was a very long way, and before long Meddle began to puff and pant, and when a bus came along he hopped onto it. "I shall wear out all my shoes if I walk so far," said Mr. Meddle, sitting down with a sigh. "How tired my feet are already." The bus was full. An old lady got in and glared at Meddle because he had put his parcel down beside him, so that there was hardly any room for her. "Move that parcel," she said sharply. "Oh, sorry," said Meddle, and he took up the parcel. He decided to sit on it, and then there would be plenty of room. So he sat down on it. It made a rather peculiar noise, but that didn't worry Meddle. No, he just sat there happily. Then he began to feel rather wet. He looked down at the seat, and to his horror he found something bright yellow was dripping off the seat to the floor. The yolk of eggs! Good gracious, surely there weren't eggs in that parcel. And here he is with that lady sitting beside him, see? And look what he's done, he sat on the eggs. He didn't know there were eggs in there, but why would he sit on the parcel anyway? I can't understand Mr. Meddle sometimes. He just finds too many easy ways to do things and always gets himself into trouble, doesn't he? Anyway, he got up in a hurry, and the parcel stuck to him. Meddle undid the paper quickly, and there in the parcel was a bag of 12 broken eggs, a bag of flour soaked with eggs, a split bag of sugar, and half a pound of butter. The butter looked very strange indeed, for Meddle was quite heavy. "Bother," said Meddle. He picked up the spoilt parcel and got off the bus. He ran all the way back to Mr. Biscuit's and showed him the parcel. "How was I to know there were eggs in it?" he said. "They've spoilt my trousers." "Serves you right," said Mr. Biscuit angrily. "What do I care about your trousers? Nothing at all. What do I care about you? What I do care about is that you have spoilt Mrs. Brown's goods. Sam, make up another parcel for Mrs. Brown. You take it yourself. This poor silly creature thinks parcels are to be sat on, not delivered." Mr. Meddle was angry. How dare Mr. Biscuit talk to him about him like that? He made up his mind to show him what he could do when he tried. Poor little creature indeed. "Make up 2 ounces of pepper for Mrs. Jones," said the grocer to Meddle, "and look sharp about it. It's in that drawer there." Well, Meddle went to the big drawer where the pepper was kept. It was lined with tin, and there was a scoop inside for measuring out the pepper. And just as Meddle was taking up the scoop to measure the pepper, a large blue bottle came buzzing around. Do you know what a blue bottle is? A blue bottle is a fly. He hated their buzz, and he hated their great big fat bodies. "I'll pepper you if you come near me," said Meddle fiercely. "Now keep away." The blue bottle at once flew around Meddle's head. Zzz, it said boldly. Zzz. You know what flies are like when they are really being a pest. "All right," said Meddle in a rage. "I'll pepper you then." He threw a scoopful of pepper at the blue bottle. It flew off, but it came back again. Zzz, zzz. "Get away, I tell you, get away," yelled Meddle. He threw another lot of pepper at the blue bottle, and most unfortunately, he didn't see Mr. Biscuit coming by, and the poor grocer found pepper flying all round him. He glared at Meddle and began to shout at him, and then he went, "Achoo! Achoo! Achoo!" He was sneezing. "You bad fellow," he began, "you achoo! Achoo! You bad achoo! Wait till I get you! Achoo!" Some customers came in, and they began to sneeze too. How they sneezed! They sneezed so much that they had to go out of the shop without buying anything. And that made Mr. Biscuit crosser than ever. He gave the surprised Meddle a good slap. "Stop playing about with that pepper," he cried. "Go out and ask Sam to give you another job in the yard." So out went Meddle, sneezing hard himself. Sam was already back from Mrs. Brown's, and he looked in surprise at the sneezing Meddle. "Got a cold?" he asked. "Good gracious, what a sneeze you've got. Sounds like fireworks going off. Now come along and do a good job. All these sacks of goods have got to be taken to the storehouse down the road, where Mr. Biscuit keeps a good many things." And so this is him. See, he's out there sneezing, and there's Sam quickly trying to tell him that these things all have to be carried down the road to the storehouse. Getting more serious, isn't it? Well, Meddle looked at the sacks. Well, that seemed easy enough. He could carry a sack as well as anyone. Here goes. Up went a sack on his shoulder, and Meddle staggered off down the yard, out of the gate, and off to the shed down the road. It was heavy. The sack was full of potatoes. It was very heavy. Meddle was glad to put it down when he reached the shed. He made up his mind that he wouldn't choose potatoes again. Oh, no, not he. He would choose a bag of sago, or something that weighed much lighter. Sam didn't seem to feel the weight of the sacks at all. He was a good and cheerful worker, and he went up and down with the sacks, whistling merrily. Meddle went round the sacks to feel which ones were the lightest of all. He chose a light one and went off with it, and that was better. The next time he again chose a light one, so that Sam had to take all the heavy ones. "Look here," said Sam at last, "I'm carrying all the heavy ones and you're picking the light ones. That won't do." "All right, I'll take a heavy one this time," said Meddle, and he picked up a sack that he knew was very, very light indeed. It was full of new sponges, dry and light as feathers, but Meddle pretended that it was very heavy indeed, and he groaned as he lifted the sack to his shoulder. Sam knew the sack was full of dry sponges. He knew it wasn't heavy. He knew Meddle was just pretending. Sam was about to shout at Meddle when something fell on his head, a big drop of rain. Then Sam grinned and said nothing at all. It was going to rain, was it? Well, let Meddle take the sponges then, and see what happened. He'd be rather surprised. Meddle went off with the sack of sponges, smiling. Aha! He had the lightest sack of all, as light as a feather. It wouldn't take him long to run down the street with that. It began to rain heavily. Thunder crashed overhead, and the rain became so heavy that a little rivulet trickled down Meddle's nose and ran off the end. Now you know what happens to your sponge when you fill it with water. You know the sponge you have in your bathtub? It gets very heavy and it gets very wet. And Meddle had a whole sack full of sponges, and they began to get very wet indeed. The wetter they got with the rain, the heavier they felt. Meddle was carrying a whole rainstorm in his sponges. He staggered along with the sack, which got heavier and heavier every minute, and Meddle couldn't understand it. Hannah, how can a sack change from light to heavy without my putting anything into it? He said to himself. I can't understand it. The rain fell more heavily, and the sponges in the sack soaked up the pelting drops and almost dragged Meddle down to the ground. Look, I must show you this picture, because look at him with his sack of sponges. Doesn't that look funny? And there's old Sam quickly. He's laughing at the back because he knew Mr. Meddle wasn't carrying anything heavy, so he thought, we'll serve him right. That'll teach him a lesson. Yes. Anyway, the rain fell more heavily, and the sponges in the sack soaked up the pelting drops and almost dragged Meddle down to the ground. He staggered along, his knees bending under him, and behind him came Sam quickly, squealing with laughter, for he knew exactly what was happening. At last the sponges were so heavy and so big with rain that the sack could no longer hold them. It burst, and Meddle was buried under a pile of great wet sponges. When the cold and wet and slithery things slid over him, Meddle gave a yell. What is it? What is it? What have I been carrying? Frogs, toads, fish? Oh, they've come alive and they're out of the sack. Help! Help! Meddle scrambled up and rushed home in great fright. Sam quickly laughed so much that he had to put his own sack down and wipe his eyes. Then he squeezed out the sponges and fetched a fresh sack for them. Well, that's the last we'll see of our new errand boy, said Sam to himself, and a good thing too. He was right. Meddle didn't go near Mr. Biscuits again. He sat by the fire to dry his things and looked gloomily into the flames. Well, work's all right for some people, said Meddle to himself, but it's no good for me. I've got too many brains to be an errand boy. It's a great pity that Mr. Biscuit didn't sell brains. If he did, Sam quickly would buy some and deliver them at Meddle's house, I'm sure. Now, wasn't that funny? Wasn't that a funny story? So you can't cheat, can you? Because you always get found out at the end. I'll talk to you again next time.